right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's All Goodall right here on Rebellious Ufology. I am Lynn Hurley with my ever so charming co-host, Mr. Jim Goodall. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing great, and it's another Monday evening of fun and frolic. We're going to have a very special repeat guest. He was on a couple weeks ago, but he was on the road and he had to cut it short. So, in just a little bit, Michael Schratt, the one and only, will be here. Mm-hmm. And like I've said before, no one does what Michael Schratt does. Not even close. He's the only one. And I'm just honored to be his friend. So he just spent, I'll let him get into most of the details, but he just spent 3 days in Roswell scanning documents, and he spent 5 days with Dr. Greer's scanning documents. So he should have a whole trailer load of goodies that he can talk about. Because I asked him, said, anything really cool? And he said, oh, yeah. So you can share it with me? He said, yeah, when the time is right. So hopefully this will be the time is right. Is that right, Michael? Yeah. So
it's a man of mystery. Well, hopefully the internet holds on. I can see myself skipping. I don't know if my audio is breaking up. It looks like we're going to get storms here. And you said there've been some like sunspots or sunstorms or solar flares. That's the word I'm looking for. So fingers crossed. But Michael is here. So let's not waste any time. Let's just get the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Michael Schratt.
Dun, 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 dun. And here's Michael Schratt, the one and only. How's it going, Michael?
Good. How are you? Lynn? Good to see you.
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you, Michael?
Yeah, I haven't talked to you since yesterday. Yeah.
That's right. Long time, huh?
Yeah. And the cousin brothers they went down to the Titan Missile Museum today. Okay. So they said, "Oh, hey, we can do some great videos there." So
that's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, excellent. It's the Titan Missile Museum. For those who don't know about it, it is the only museum of its type in the world, and they got special permission from the Russians because of SALT II. They had to eliminate, all the Titan II sites except for the one just south of Tucson. And it's interesting, and it has a complete Titan II in there. Now they have the reentry vehicle, the nose cone, has been cut, so the cameras can look in there and see that there's nothing. There's no hydrogen bomb sitting on top of the Titan II. Mm-hmm. And it would really ruin the museum if they had to launch it too. So, but it's a great place, and it's a once in a lifetime thing for the brothers to do.
That's exciting.
Yeah, alien girl.
Yay!
Greetings from the world of things that go bump in the night. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't that right, Michael?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely. And Akasha came up with a new term. Didn't mean to cut you off, Jim, but you'll like this one. On Twitter, she coined the term the Schrattosphere.
Hey, that's good. That's good.
I thought you'd like that one. Yes.
Yeah. So, Michael, you're going to do a data dump on us on all the exciting stuff that you've.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope we can. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. We got 10 hours. So just
10 hours. Ooh.
Okay. It's gonna be tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
excited.
What a rip.
You've been with Dr. Greer. You guys have been uploading documents, I hear?
We're preserving an important part of our national history. So he wanted to get his collection scanned. And so I spent 5 days in the basement scanning all the mission critical documents. So he has that now. Excellent. And he's working with members in Congress in Washington, D.C. to move this ball forward. That's what he's doing. So I'm supporting him in any respect that he needs. And that's what we're doing. And I'm continuing to illustrate by way of my good friend Rudy Gardea, who is illustrating all the UFO crash retrieval cases from this book right here. This is the Bible for all the UFO crash retrieval cases. All of the most important cases are within this book.
Cat, sorry. A cat ruining. Ruining it. Well, that's a very
that just prove it's live.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. I apologize. You may hear him. He's been obnoxious. He got outside, and now all he wants to do is get out, and he's wreaking havoc in order to do that. So, apologize. So the book that you were holding up again, can you say that again? I'm so sorry. Sure. I missed it because of the
It's clatter. UFO Crash Retrievals, the Complete Investigation Status Reports 1 through 7. And this was done by Leonard Stringfield, who was the gentleman who coined the term UFO crash retrievals. In 1978, he gave a lecture at the MUFON Symposium in Dayton, Ohio, right next to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, of all places. And it was a exotic topic back then. People just didn't really know too much about crash retrievals back then. It was a new area of research in this field of ufology. And he brought up a paper called Retrievals of the Third Kind, and he went into about 12 different witnesses that he had talked to, people who had firsthand experience recovering the bodies, pathologists who were on the autopsies, people who handled the debris, military personnel who loaded the dish-shaped craft onto the 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboys and then sent them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Homestead Air Force Base, Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, all these different locations. That's the level of quality of the firsthand witnesses that Leonard Stringfield had talked to.
That's incredible. And so much information to find out, too, because we always hear the bodies are being brought to Wright-Pat or, Area 51 or S4 or whatever. But it sounds like this stuff is just being spread out everywhere, which is what I imagine would actually happen as far as the military would be concerned.
Yeah, it certainly looks like they follow a no single point failure process here. They don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. So they have definitely farmed this out to different locations, because if they had a catastrophic failure somewhere, they'd lose all their information. So they have to spread it out. It seems to be the safest move.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Now, Jim, did you ever hear anything when you were in the military? Like, I know at Wright-Pat, my dad was stationed there and I lived in the area. There were always rumors, there were rumors, like even the contractors would hear like, oh, it's rumored there's an alien at the base. Now, any of the bases,
Wright-Patterson has always been the home of the Air Force Systems Command.
Okay.
Audio is really getting weird.
Is it?
I hear you fine.
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
I hear you fine.
I don't know what's wrong with the internet. Mine's going crazy. I've lost signals. I think Lynn, you look like you're.
Oh, no. I think maybe.
I'm only getting.
Oh, you're back.
Are you back now? Can you hear us okay, Jim?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you. I think it was freezing up on your end, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it sounds like Stuart's saying it took him 9 minutes to get on here. So I wonder, maybe it is something like you were saying, the solar flares messing with people's internet or something.
Yeah.
So, Jim, did you ever hear anything at any of the bases that you were at?
Oh yeah, they were. I've been to 213 bases, so to be more specific, but
many,
and that's primarily to go photograph airplanes. But there's it's been rumored forever and ever that the Air Force Systems Command, which is based out of Wright-Patterson, they were even going back before I went in the service, there was rumblings that. They had UFO retrieval and craft and bodies and artifacts at Wright-Patterson. So they have an organization there called the Alien Technology Center, and it's more or less geared towards when they say alien technology, it's more geared towards non-Western technology. In other words, what are the Ruskies and the Chinese and the rest of the bad players doing out there? So that's where, and it's been rumored for a long, long time. Now, I had a friend of mine a guy I worked with in our unit. He was in security service for a number of years, so he's a communication specialist. And he told me we're having a discussion on UFOs, and this is back in the late 70s. And he said, "What do you think the reason for Project Blue Book being shut down?" I said, "Well, they either proved without a doubt that UFOs are real, or they prove beyond a reasonable doubt that UFOs are not." So it's been kicked around the neighborhood for a long, long time that, hey, there's something at right, Pat. I know that it was back in the day, Richard Nixon took Jackie Gleason to Homestead to see some artifacts. Now, that was when Homestead was an active duty Air Force base. It is now an Air Force Reserve base. So the footprint is significantly smaller. Probably a lot of the activities, if there were classified activities on there, they may have been relocated. MacDill is headquarters for Central Command, which is the Mideast. That is a large facility. It's surrounded by 3 sides by water. It's right on Tampa Bay, and it's on a peninsula. There's a question whether or not private contractors are working on it, and that's a very, very valid comment, that saying that contractors are not subject to FOIA requests.
That's true.
Someone within the organization, one of the things we were discussing last night with Blake and Brent Cousins, and also John DeSouza. It was quite a household last night. We had some really fun people here. And one of the problems is we don't know who to ask, because a lot of people, even that they may be in high levels of authority, but they're not ready into some of the really spooky stuff that we're trying to find out about. So if we don't have a specific organization and a specific point of contact, or and an email, or something you can hang your hat on, it's going to be a real challenge. I know during when I was at the Pentagon during Desert Shield and Desert Storm, when I was trying to find the location that paid Bob Lazar on his W-2, it wasn't listed. There was no Department of the Navy operation that it was exactly what it said on his W-2. And that's when I decided to go. I think it was NCIS where I finally ended up at, and I got my butt chewed out by a 2-star. So unless you have that roadmap. Now, one of the really fascinating things is just recently, Blake Cousins interviewed a congressman for 40 minutes. Started out, he was really, I know nothing's like Sergeant Schultz. Near the end of it, he was, I think we have an ally. And he said there are other, there's at least one other senator and some other Congress critters on both sides of the aisle that have a strong interest in shedding some light on aerial phenomena.
Interesting.
And and again, the things we were discussing last night. I mean, we just had a roundtable discussion between the Cousin brothers and John and myself, and it was we had a lot of brain power there. Mine not so much, but with John and the brothers, quite a bit. And we're trying to identify, what's the next step? Where are we going to go from here? How are we going to dig out that person or persons that is ripe for being a whistleblower? And we talked a lot about that yesterday as well. There's, if you're within the organization, if you're within the machine of special access programs, and you decide it is your patriotic duty to go public, there's gonna be some hell to pay unless between now and then we're able to convince the federal government to go easy on those types of whistleblowers. The spies, hang them up, skin them, nail them onto an anthill of and let that be the day. But those of us, the white hats, the good guys, the Michael Schratts, the Jim Goodalls, the Cousin Brothers, the Lynn Hurleys, and we all need to be able to have a roadmap of who we can go to, who is within the federal government. I mean, allegedly they work for us.
True.
It's we the people, not you the government. It's we the people, and there's got to be. We have one ally, and that's the congressman from the Nashville area. His first name is Tim. I don't want to butcher his last name, so I won't use it. But we need more of those.
Yeah.
And the one thing that the congressman told Blake is, you're trying to find out where to go. I'll be your conduit to get that information to you.
Well, that's helpful.
And it's gonna take the efforts of all of us.
Right.
I mean, if Blake and Brett live on the Big Island, Hawaii, they spend an awful lot of time on the mainland, but they can't be everywhere at once.
Right.
I have the ability, being that I'm unemployed, retired. I'm no longer gainfully employed anywhere. Yeah. I can, within my budget, I can really go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on a quick response. If someone needs me to go somewhere, I'll jump in my car or jump in an airplane, one of the two.
Yeah. Hey, I got New England covered.
And we have to. Good. Yeah. Michael has the left coast covered. And
there you go.
Pretty much.
We're good. We got the country.
And we just need more soldiers. We need more people. Unfortunately, the Michael Schratts and the Jim Goodalls of the world are few and far between. I mean, there's no one does what Michael does. Right. Most of the guys that I went out in the desert with, I was probably younger than majority of them. The shot of 6 of us on top of Whitesides.
Yep.
There was Stu Brown. He's still here. There's me. I'm still here. Mm-hmm. There was Glenn Campbell. Mm-hmm. He's gone. There's Tom Luttrell. He was commandant at Tulare Police. He's gone. There's Bob Gilliland, first man to fly the SR-71. He's gone. There's John Andrews, who I always referred to as Spy 1. I was always Spy 2. And he's gone. I mean, it's just, and there's more every single day. And those are the gems that we have to track down. Michael's done a good job of it over the years. I've done a fairly decent job as far as Blackbird related people. But the job is, far from even partially covered or completed. So anybody out there who has a bee in their bonnet and they want to do something significant, they want to do something important. If you have a passion towards this area of interest, things that go bump in the night, things we can't explain, funny little lights in the sky, things that go really, really fast, things that, that don't show up in radar or fly over you, don't make a noise. We need people who have a passion, if they have 1% of the passion that Michael has, they would be great.
Absolutely.
I like going out there. I'm getting up, and I look at the mirror and I said, "How in the hell did I? When did all the years go? Where did all the decades go?" Yeah, because I'd look in there and said, "How do you make it to 77?" It's just it doesn't even make sense. So.
Well,
But as I've been jabbering along, Michael's been sitting there, not contributing. Tell us some
listening.
of the.
He's actively listening.
Yeah, well, I know that. Yeah, tell us some of the incredible things that you've come across in the last month or so.
As I kind of mentioned before, I meet with Rudy every Saturday at the Starbucks in Oxnard. And we spend 6 hours going through these UFO crash retrieval cases. So if we can, I'd like to share my screen and we can go through some of these. Now, some of these will be a review, but I've updated it with new information, new cases, new drawings, new illustrations. And we'll see if we can do this here. Let's see here. Share. So share screen.
Mm-hmm.
Share. Okay. Entire screen, and go here, share. All right, so now I'm going to go down here. And
okay, so I think I can add. There we go.
Is that working?
Yep.
It is working. Okay, good. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to try to maximize this thing, and then I'm going to zip down through all of these so that we can have full screen on everything here. I think that's probably our best option. And I want to pick this thing up right about, we can go through this one here, and I want to start right about here. Okay, so I'm going to hide this. All right, so hopefully this is coming up okay.
Yep, looks great.
Okay, so again, this is from UFO Crash Retrievals, Leonard Stringfield, 1978 to 1994. These are the cases. So this is interesting because this case is 5 years before Roswell. UFO crash retrieval in 1942 at a location somewhere, quote unquote, north of Georgia. That's all we know about it. Reference is page 319. Now, this was about a 20-foot, 5-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that came down. It actually hit the ledge of the base where this thing was retrieved. So there was a hull breach on the side of the craft. There were a minimum of 4 bodies recovered. They were about 4.5 feet tall, and you can see what we've done here. We've kind of done a composite drawing showing you what the beings look like. It's this same motif again and again. Oversized head, oversized almond-shaped eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose, 2 indentations for the nostrils, oversized, gangly, long arms and hands. And many of these, there's 4 fingers with no opposing thumb, and then webbing between the fingers. That's kind of what they've been describing here. Now, there was a wraparound window near the outer part of the rim of the craft. And then what was said in the report is that there were 3 levels, and we're considered with the first 2 levels here. The upper level had this control panel that had buttons and dials and switches and levers, and it had a display screen on it. Now, below that on the mid-deck, there were 4 bar chairs that were in front of this wraparound window. And so, I came to Rudy, I said, I want you to incorporate all these features into this drawing, and this is his final result here. Gives you an idea what it looks like. Now, if this case is true, if the cases that we'll consider here, if they're true, then there's a multitude of cases prior to Roswell that are not even considered. And I think it's important that we definitely maintain this important part of our national history. Okay, so we've already talked about Roswell. I'm gonna pass through this here fairly quickly because we've already basically covered all these guys, because I've got these in order here, in date order. I want to cover the new cases so that we're covering something that we haven't talked about before. All right, so Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946. And now that I have a little bit more time, we can look at these a little bit better here. This was a private who was involved in records management. And the source is Space, the Final Frontier, page 59 by Clark McClellan. And he actually interviewed Jackie Gleason. If you read this book, I think he's telling the truth about the Homestead Air Force Base. I really think
I was going to ask you if you knew anything, if that was true or not.
Yeah, I mean, when you read the report in this book from Clark McClellan, he describes meeting Jackie Gleason at this truck stop or like a restaurant. And Jackie invites Clark into his car, and they sat there for an hour talking about this. And the way he describes what Jackie told him totally rings true. It really does. Now, this is a separate case, 1946, again, prior to Roswell. So we're considering two cases prior to Roswell. So this private goes to the hangar at Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. It wasn't Wright-Patterson Air Force Base yet. That happened in 47. So it was still Wright Field, 1946. He goes to the hangar. He recognizes his friend there. His friend brings him into the hangar. Off to the left, they see this craft, about 15 feet in diameter, 7 feet tall. It had a 3-foot diameter central column that started from the bottom all the way up to the top. There were transparent windows that were wrapped around the outer circumference of the disc itself. They were rectangular in color, and they were definitely transparent. This thing had no rivets, no welds, no seams, no hatches, no control panels, no seats, and a 3-foot diameter disc-shaped column going up. Now, if you look at the red dot on one of the windows just to the left of the column, that is the attempted point of entry where they were trying to drill into this craft. So I'm going to take you to a full color illustration of what this thing actually looked like. And as I've been going through these crash retrieval cases, I keep hearing about laboratory technicians trying to breach the hull of these craft. And what they were doing is, we'll go to the drawing here. There was a tarp sitting on the floor next to the craft on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, forward of the craft, there was an electric drill with a diamond tip drill bit. So they were trying to drill into the glass of this craft. I don't know if they ever got inside. I don't know, but I've got at least 3 cases now where the United States military is trying to breach the hull of these craft using diamond tip drills, using acetylene torches, and also using a laser as well. So they are desperate to get into these craft, to reverse engineer the propulsion systems, and then they're trying to break the tensile strength of the material so that they can reverse engineer it, incorporate it into our birds, essentially, is what it looks like they're doing here. Now, next one. This is a very interesting case. Now, it happened sometime prior to 1951. I don't have an exact date. It wasn't given in the book. But this is Sierra Madre, California, around the mountain range, and this is page 32. There was a construction worker working on a typical construction site. A dish-shaped craft came down, and then they brought in a C-119 flying boxcar. The military came to this gentleman and asked him if he would help them load this craft into the back of the boxcar. Now I'm going to forward here. I'm going to show you the inside of the C-119. And if you look here, we're looking at approximately 6 feet across. So whatever they recovered has to be smaller than 6 feet. So I'm thinking 5 foot 6 inches. This is a small dish-shaped craft. Now, there were 3 bodies associated with this too. So whatever this thing was minute. The bodies were small. So this construction worker describes the scene. They were bringing it into the cargo bay of the C-119. He actually touched the bodies themselves. And so now I want to take you to the scene itself. And here's what Rudy came up with. You can see the Jeep in the foreground. They have the cargo bay doors open, and they're bringing it up through a ramp into the aft cargo bay of the C-119. So again, this is prior to 1951. So we're looking at probably late 1940s time frame. So by Roswell, we could already have had 2 or 3 crash retrievals. It's absolutely possible. All right, next one, Pentagon, 1952. This is page 152. Now, this has to do with an interesting case where this woman went to an underground basement vault at the Pentagon. It was a dark, dusty room. There were boxes in there. She kind of makes a turn and she sees a quote unquote pickled alien in a glass jar. 5 seconds later, she feels this abrupt hand on her shoulder, on her arm there. It's an MP. She had to sign security agreements that she would never talk about this. She finally did talk about it. But again, this is 1952, lower basement of the Pentagon. They've got the evidence. If this woman is telling the truth, if this is actually real, then they've got the physical evidence. They've got the bodies. They've got the debris. They've got the craft. And we recently heard these congressional hearings where they were asked, do you have anything? Do you have any proof? And they always say, not to my knowledge. They're just either one, lying, or number two, they're not read into these programs. They don't have a high enough security clearance. But yet we've got this woman here who's discussing seeing this physical evidence. Are we to think that they're all lying? Is it possible that 2 or 3 of these Leonard Stringfield cases were not truthful? It's definitely possible. But when you add 119 cases all together describing similar common denominators that are running through these cases, now you've got a real body of evidence here. Something that may have looked like this. This is from Joseph Wraith. All right, next one. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1953. This was a warrant officer. He was at the right place at the right time when a 4-engine cargo DC-7 flew into Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It was at night. He taxied up on the tarmac. He went into one of these hangars, and then the hangar doors shut. And I want to take you inside now, the hangar facility. And could have been one of these hangars. I don't know which one, but it certainly could have been one of these. And it's large enough to hold a DC-7, no problem at all. So the DC-7 taxis into the hangar. They close the door. And on the left port-hand side rear of the DC-7, there's a cargo bay hatch that opened up, revealing 5 wooden crates. 3 of the crates had their tops removed, and then a forklift came in, and I'm going to move forward here. It gives you kind of a forward shot of what these hangars may have looked like. This is essentially the scene. You've got the forklift lowering a pallet. Now there's 5 wooden crates on there. The top 3 had the crates removed, and this warrant officer was about 10 feet away. He kind of leaned over and looked inside these wooden crates, and he said, and I'm going to forward here, he saw 3 quote-unquote alien bodies about 3.5 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nostrils. One of them was female. They were being suspended off the bottom of the wooden crates by a fabric that protected them from the dry ice below, which I thought was very interesting. So again, this is 1953. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and a warrant officer is the primary eyewitness. Okay, now let's talk about 1955. This is the Foreign Materials Division, page 17, abstract 12 from Leonard Stringfield. This was a woman who worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I'm going to forward here. She was in charge of cataloging, and this what I think is just incredible. According to her testimony, her job was to record and document 1,000 components from the interior of a UFO crash retrieval. So again, the government keeps telling us that they don't have any physical evidence, yet we've got this woman who testified that she was in charge of, once these things were photographed, bagged, and tagged, her job was to record 1,000 components. So I'm thinking there's got to be this massive warehouse where they keep all the components here. Now, this is actually in Building 258 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It must have looked very similar to this. So now I'm going to take you inside this records management portion at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and this is what it perhaps looked like. She also mentioned that as she was recording these pieces of debris, there was a cart that went by, and there were 2 bodies preserved in this formaldehyde liquid as this thing just rolled by her typewriter. And you can see in the background here, we've got one gentleman who's taking photographs, And then they're bagging, they're tagging, and they're recording and then archiving all these interior components from UFO crash retrievals. And then in the background, we've kind of got this morgue set up where additional debris can be stored. If this is true, it's just bombshell. Now, I also have a little quote at the bottom. This is from the woman here. Quote, "Uncle Sam can't do anything to me once I'm in my grave," end quote. I thought that was an interesting little point here. So she laid it on the line. She put it down. She knew she had about 6 months to live. After giving this testimony, she died 6 months later. But I'm so glad that she came forward and told us that this is what she was involved in. All right, next one. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, April 1962. This was a transient pilot with 4 other pilots that were kind of running down the row of hangars at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base back in 1962. They were looking for exercise equipment. They were going to set up this mobile racquetball station. So they go into this hangar and they find this 20-foot diameter disc-shaped craft. It looked like a track and field discus. It was supported by 2 engine test stands, and there were about 6 military personnel that were parade rest with rifles guarding this thing. They actually went back to the base commander. The base commander knew that this happened. He asked the transient pilot commanding officer, "What did you see?" And he said, "I didn't see anything." And the commanding officer said, the general said, "Good answer." And that's how that went down. So he did see this. It was there. And he even made the mention that he was convinced that the good old USA was experimenting or already had in possession dish-shaped craft back in 1962. Next one, Fort Riley, Kansas. This is a very controversial case, but I'm bringing it up because we have 2 separate independent sources that confirm that this case may actually be real. So actual date is December 10th, 1964. A private first class is woken out of bed. He gets onto a military transport with about 5 other personnel. They go down this road about a mile. Then they're let off. And I'm going to take you to what they saw here. This is a 48-foot diameter dish-shaped craft, 18 feet high, looks like a fat hamburger. Around the outer circumference, there's about, you could say, 48 of these 10 by 10 square devices that were jutting out from the craft itself. It also had a fin at the back that once it reached the back perimeter of the outer circumference, there was a protrusion coming out of the back. So now I'm going to take you to kind of a good color illustration of what this craft looked like back in 1964, Fort Riley, Kansas. Here is the drawing that Rudy came up with. There was a Huey UH-1 hovering over the scene at night with a beaming spotlight coming down on the craft. There were military personnel guarding this craft, and then there were also military personnel with Geiger counters checking the bottom of it as well. The 2 other independent witnesses saw this craft on an 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy departing the area. So at least we have some independent confirmation that this craft case actually took place. All right, next one. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1966, civil servants electrician. This is page 17, abstract 13. So he's there, 1966. He brings home a photograph to show his son. So he comes home one night, he opens up his trench coat, and he shows his son this black and white 8x10 glossy, which depicted one man in khakis, the other one in a trench coat, somewhere in the Southwest. So it could be somewhere in Arizona. It's possible. It could be New Mexico. And they were holding up about a 4-foot tall alien body with an oversized head, oversized eyes, that was wearing kind of this metallic one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. He showed his son the next day when he went to the base. They knew that he took that photograph, and he got in serious trouble over this. So this is the second time I've heard of beings being held up by military personnel in kind of this Southwest setting.
That's interesting. Like that. Sorry to interrupt you, Michael. That description, it reminds me very much of Skinny Bob.
Yes, it's true. That's true. Great Lakes Naval Training Center, 1973. This is a gunnery school instructor and he was guarding a Quonset-style building. He was told to go into this facility to deliver a very important letter. And this was in a Quonset-style building at this training center back in 1973. So he's escorted by these two muscular Seabees, they're called. They go down this hallway, they make a left-hand turn, they go into this large clearing area, and what do they see? They see this 35-foot, you could call it a teardrop-shaped craft that tapered back to a sharp edge, 12 feet tall. It did have now from what I can gather from the report, there was a ridge that started from the leading edge of the craft that go all the way to the top spine and then tapered back to the aft end of the craft where it tapers back to a point. So now I want to take you inside this facility. This is what the craft looks like according to the best that I can get from his report. And here's the drawing that Rudy came up with. And you can see it was supported on a 2-foot tall wooden pedestal. And here he is delivering the letter to the commanding officer that's off the page to the right. He also said that near the front part of the craft, there was a blue coronal discharge that was coming off this craft. Now, that's something we've heard of multiple times before, this strange blue coronal discharge. This is an interesting case. Norton Air Force Base, 1973. This was an Air Force photographer, page 160. Again, this is Norton Air Force Base. Now, he was a gun camera footage analysis expert, and he was stationed at Hawaii at the time. He was flown to Norton Air Force Base, and he was joined by another analyst. They go inside this Air Force staff car, and they drive an hour from Norton Air Force Base, and then the car just parks. It stops. It just stops there. All of a sudden, the car lowers down into an underground facility. When they get inside, they're told to disrobe, and they're told to don these laboratory smocks, one-piece smocks with a clear transparent cutout in the forward part. They go into another part of the underground facility, and they see a large crane supporting a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft with a netting on the bottom of it. Then both of these gentlemen are told to go into a cherry picker. They go inside the entry hatch of the craft. Now, this craft, according to this analysis expert, he said it was 30 feet in diameter. And then he mentioned that once he got inside, quote, I could have thrown a football as hard as I could and not hit the other side once he got in. So there was something going on time-wise or spatial-wise within the interior of the craft. His job was to photograph the display panels and control sections of the interior. And then once they were done, they were let out of that hatch, and then they went to another room where there was an autopsy going on, where they were doing an autopsy on 3 corpses that were about 4 feet in height. So in a nutshell, that is this particular case. So what I started doing is I started drilling down on the newspaper clippings. And what you'll find is this one, Los Angeles Times, June 11th, 1972. LA to New York in half an hour, 10,000 mile an hour tunnel train plan developed. So here we've got some evidence of these maglev tube transporters going 10,000 miles an hour. This is back in 1972. They were looking at the feasibility of doing this. And if we're reading about it in the LA Times, and they've thrown billions of dollars at this project, it's already a done deal. They've got the technology. They've worked it out. Here you can see the vacuum pumps. They're sucking this out. They're creating a vacuum for this. Very low drag coefficient. In fact, no drag coefficient whatsoever if it's a zero vacuum environment. But just goes to show you that when we've heard about these tube transport maglev trains connecting via tube tunnels through these bases, we've got something to back it up. All right, next one, McClellan Air Force Base, 1973. This is near Sacramento, California. This is page 153, case 3. There was a test pilot, Ellison Onizuka, who was present at McClellan Air Force Base when they were brought into a pilot's briefing room. The lights came down, and then there was a military personnel, high-level military brass, who was standing next to a film projector. He turns on the film projector, and on the forward wall, What do they see? And here is pilot Ellison Onizuka. They see two alien bodies on a corpse, on two slabs, kind of in a autopsy environment. And he's absolutely shocked at what he's seeing. Now, here's the interesting part about it. A friend of Leonard Stringfield by the name of Chris Kofi knew Ellison Onizuka when he visited Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And they kind of did a little interview, and they described this whole scene. Now, Leonard was scheduled to interview the pilot, but unfortunately, he died in the Challenger explosion. It is none other than astronaut Ellison Onizuka. So we were within 2 weeks of getting the testimony of this gentleman, but he died in the Challenger explosion. So again, this knowledge, this proof is always 2 steps ahead of us. We always come so close, but we miss the boat sometimes.
Oh, that's so frustrating. I mean, sad for him, but frustrating.
Now, I tracked down astronaut Onizuka's widow. I wrote her a letter, and I included that drawing with a description about what he allegedly told Chris Kofi. I never got a response. I don't know if she got my letter, but I did send it. So I was hoping to get some kind of confirmation, because if we could get a statement from his widow that he actually did see that and he told his wife, that'd be a really good piece of evidence.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The interesting thing is that he's not the only one. There was another person who stated that he saw something here. This is from Open Minds. Witness says that top secret UFO library existed at McClellan Air Force Base. David Armstrong claims his aunt used to work for a top secret UFO records library at McClellan Air Force Base. In his 20s, Armstrong went to visit her, and knowing he had an interest in the subject, Armstrong says his aunt let him take a look at the files. In this video, Armstrong recounts what he claims to have seen in those files, and they go into this, what he saw, portions of Roswell, other crash retrievals, a whole stack of photographs. So apparently there's a library at this location, very similar to what was seen at MacDill Air Force Base back in 1967. So again, as we talked about in the beginning, they have multiple repositories around the country where they keep this information. They don't just put all their eggs in one basket. Absolutely. Okay, Fort Hood. This is late 1960s, probably 1968. And this has to do with this very interesting location in Texas. Now, embedded within Fort Hood is something called Robert Gray Army Airfield. And according to Leonard Stringfield in the report here, this private pilot was flying a 172. He had to make an emergency landing at this facility, which he wasn't supposed to do, but he did it anyway. So he lands his 172. Within literally 20 seconds, there's a military jeep that pulls up. One gentleman on the passenger side has a rifle aimed straight at him. And about 3 seconds later, near where the pilot came down, there's about a 200-foot by 200-foot square. These bypass doors open up, revealing a massive underground facility. So what I want to do now is I want to take you inside this underground facility. And of course, they have twin rotor CH-47s at Fort Hood Gray Army Airfield, Robert Gray Army Airfield. And what is stated in this report is that there were multiple sightings of UFOs being escorted by our U.S. Army CH-47 double rotor Chinook helicopters. We've got multiple cases of UFOs being escorted by our helicopters. It's like we're doing our own test flights and we're using these to fly chase. That's what it looks like. So here's the interior of the facility itself. You can see the huge bypass door open. You can see the Cessna 172. We've got the Cash Landrum craft, which was December 29th, 1980. We've got the Texas Temple, Oklahoma. That's March 23rd, 1966. Other dish-shaped craft. And then we've got one CH-47 ready to leave the facility on a test flight. So this is kind of what we've got. Is it possible that this could be real? We've got eyewitnesses that are confirming this. It appears that it's actually going on here. Now, next one. This is 1978, January 18th. Fort Dix McGuire Air Force Base is a joint base, and I'm sure Jim knows all about this.
Been there.
It's a very controversial case, but I'm going to include it anyway, because George Filer claims that he was there the morning this actually took place. So I'm including it in here, even though it's a very controversial case. There was a sighting late that night, early the morning, of 10 dish-shaped crafts over McGuire Air Force Base. So there was an MP that got himself into a car, a patrol car. He was going around the perimeter fence area of the base, and out of the darkness, and this shows you a map of where this actually took place here. Out of the darkness comes this strange being. So he gets out of the driver's side car of the squad car. He pulls out his .45 caliber pistol and he shoots this thing. It climbs over the fence and dies on the McGuire Air Force Base side of the base itself. So I took this map and I lined it up with Google Maps of where this actually took place. And this is the general vicinity of where I can come up with of where this took place. The body died at the end of the runway. And then I want to take you to the scene now. And this is what Rudy came up with. You can see the MP shooting this being. He climbed over the fence. He died on the other side. The next morning, they built a wooden crate for this body. And then there was a C-141 Starlifter that came from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They sprayed something over the crate. They put that crate into a large metal container, and then they loaded that into the aft cargo bay of the C-141, and then that flew directly to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So again, we've got these reports that all roads appear to go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Jim, do you have any comments on this case?
You know, Wright-Patterson is really the center of the universe as far as new and foreign technology. So, and it's been managed out of there since the Wright brothers started flying. So it's that's the reason why you have such a huge complex there, is because that is where everything has been tested. I mean, if you're going to fly something spooky, it'll be at Area 51 or maybe one or two other locations. But the retrieval of the information, the testing of the components, is probably all done there at Wright-Pat.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a huge complex. You have two bases. You have Wright Field and you have Patterson Field. Yeah, and I spent 3 summers there when I was with the Guard in the Restoration Center. That was fun. I mean, I got to work on a B-58 Hustler, a YF-12 Interceptor, which was also a Blackbird, and a few other just very, very cool airplanes. So
it's amazing.
It's a neat base. It's not like it used to be. The military isn't what it used to be. I mean, you used to be able to go to a base like Eglin, and there'd be 400 different aircraft on the ramp.
Ooh.
You go there today, there may be 10 or 15, and they're all the same.
That's crazy.
We used to have the Century series from the F-100 up to the F-106, the F-107, and it's just, I don't know. I was blessed to have been in the Air Force during this golden era when when things were just really, really exciting, where you could be at Edwards Air Force Base on a given day, have a couple Blackbirds fly, have a couple B-58s fly, some U-2s flying out of North Base, and maybe a YF-12 or an SR-71, operating there somewhere. I mean, there was always something in the air. You can go to Edwards today, and you can be there all day and maybe not even see an airplane in the air.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Wow. I remember growing up, there would be rows of F-15s and F-16s and C-120s and just tons.
Oh yeah, I can remember going to Eglin there at Fort Walton Beach, and the ramp and it's a huge ramp. I mean, the ramp was literally filled with everything in the Air Force inventory. and that was exciting.
Yeah.
And I was really good at talking my way onto ramps to go shoot. But today, you don't have that access anymore because of 9/11 and because of the world we live in. But it's also a totally different world.
Mhm.
When I asked a buddy of mine from the Skunk Works, and he was way up there in the food chain, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, I know you can't tell me what you're working on, but is there anything you're working on going to get me excited?" And he said, "No." And he said, right now our enemy isn't the evil Soviet Union or the great dragon, the Chinese. Our enemy is some goat herder out of Iraq or Afghanistan that hates America, and that's the type of equipment that we're focusing on now with the heating up of the new Cold War with Russia and with China. That's that matrix is changing. So you're gonna need some of the spooky stuff that we had back in the 50s and 60s and the 70s when we were still fighting the Cold War. And this is just part 2. And like in my presentation I gave 2 weeks ago up in Phoenix, it says, "Is this the end, or is this the beginning of the end?"
Mm.
As far as stuff being we're at a very strange point in the evolution of of this planet. We have people on one side who want to destroy it. We have things on the other side where we're being visited by unknowns. We don't know if they're time travelers. We don't know if they're coming in through portals and wormholes. We don't know if they're actually coming across the universe on machines, UFOs, flying saucers, however you want to look at it. But it's the world is not what it appears to be, and I think it's getting more frightening every day, it seems like. But that's just my opinion. Yeah. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's a different world, Jim. I think you're right. It's something completely different now.
Yeah, I mean, you look around and it is, the liberals against the conservatives. Well, that should be a bunch of crap. I'm not getting into politics on this, but this is being visited by unknown people from some place that we have no idea where they're at.
Right.
That isn't a liberal or conservative concern. That is an American concern. That's a concern that we should all be. What the hell's happening? Why are we seeing these things? Why? How can a craft overfly a missile complex out of Grand Forks or out of Minot or out of Ellsworth Air Force Base that controls the balance of the 450 Minuteman III missiles out there?
Mm-hmm.
I said, we have these craft that are overflying those facilities and affecting the operation of those facilities.
Yeah.
That is a direct assault on our national sovereignty and the safety of our country. And we may not be able to do anything about it, but at least let's make the world aware of the fact that we're looking for this stuff. We're looking for answers, and keeping it bottled up and feeding us Kraft sandwiches and telling us it's it's filet mignon. That stuff has to stop. And maybe we should get more pushy. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people don't like me because I am pushy. But we're in a very, very strange place in this entire country, and I'm concerned about it. and where's it going to go? Where's it going to end? What is the end game?
Right.
And
I think if the truth could be revealed regarding these cases, this entire world would be in a better place because it would be from a position of honesty.
Right.
well, that's a word that isn't anywhere on any written piece of laws or regulations that today's government and today's employees in the government live by.
True.
No, everybody is looking at what's for me, how what's my part of the pie, versus why are we being visited? Why are we being kept in the dark? What is the purpose? What is the advantage of us not knowing? I mean, that's what I'd like to know. That's why I asked the questions.
Mhm.
And here's the guys at the Paranormal Chop Shop. Hey, Sonny, and how's it going?
Hey, Sonny.
Hope all is well.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got to keep on pushing. We got to. I do a real good job of being a pain in the ass, and I will continue to do so. And David Martin is right, and this is a concern not just of Americans and those of us in the U.S., but this is a concern for the residents of this great planet.
And Epic is right as well too. I honestly believe it'll be disruptive to the power structure of the whole world, and I think that's why they're so resistant to telling us anything about it, because it would be.
No, I think when we have an adversary that we know nothing about, the best thing we can do is shine light on it.
Mhm.
And all we're doing is being fed prep sandwiches. We're getting they're talking out of both sides of their mouth when our government, who supposedly works for us, we the people, I'm ready for something to happen. I'm ready for, and all is it going to take one person? I mean, what started this avalanche of interest in UFOs is when Bob Lazar, about 30 some odd years ago, and he was sort of the catalyst, or maybe he was the one who pushed the first boulder down the hill, and now it's still rolling down the hill, and hopefully it'll turn into a very large avalanche, and hopefully that avalanche will uncover what we've been searching for, and what that is answers. Why are we being investigated? Why are we being looked at? Why is our government not telling us what's out there?
Yeah. Just a quick tangent you reminded me of, Jim,
All you
because
can do
somebody
is
had asked
be
earlier.
more of a pain in the ass than you already are.
I'm being a pain in the ass? Is that what you said? That's true. Always. I don't know if Jim's having
I just
trouble
lost
hearing
you.
me. Oh, okay. Can you hear me, Michael?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't hear you at all. And your image is frozen. There you go.
Oh, okay. I don't know if it's maybe on your end. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, while we're getting Jim back,
Yep.
somebody had asked earlier, since you brought up Bob Lazar, that since you've had a chance to listen to the Bob Lazar tapes, what are your thoughts on Bob Lazar now?
Is that for Jim or for me?
That's for you.
For me?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you. You were garbled.
Okay. Yeah, I met Bob Lazar. I found him to be a very intriguing person. My only question about the entire account is, why haven't we heard from test pilots who flew around Groom Lake prior to 1989, 1988, 1989, who describe a remote facility there at S4? That's my only question. Why haven't pilots come forward to state that there was such a working facility? That's the only question I want to get answered. That's really my comment on it.
We don't have any pilots that have said anything about it in any way, shape, or form?
Jim, unless you know of some.
Interesting.
I mean, Dave Fruhoff is the only one I know that actually worked at Area 51 that actually had indicated to me and told me about chasing an unknown, a UFO, and a Blackbird.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 72, 73 time frame.
Right.
And when he got to Area 51, when he retired, he became the facility manager there. And he was looking for two items. He was looking for underground facilities, which at Area 51 there aren't any, according to Dave. And once he was there and he was comfortable, everybody was comfortable with him, and he knew most everybody anyway. He started, if we had a Mach 12 or Mach 16 craft that had been flight tested out of Area 51, prior to him coming on board in I think it was 1979 when he got hired on. And his job was, he was responsible for every single structure,
Mm-hmm.
from a paint locker to the largest hangars. And he was also responsible for the maintenance of all the non-program or test articles at Area 51. He would go up and do chase when they're flying half blue. He'd go up and do chase when they're flying the early, YF-117s.
Right.
He also made inquiries to guys he knew that were still there. Oh, yes. Hey, where are those guys at? They must be in my living room. When the hell was I going? So Dave Fruhoff made some inquiries. He asked guys that were there when he knew that Lazar was there. And do you ever recall the person's name or seeing the person? And a couple of the guys, this is per Dave Fruhoff, said that a couple of guys did confirm that Bob Lazar was on the red and whites, also known as the Janet flights, from McCarran to Area 51. So, and Dave even said that he saw equipment that was designated to go to a place called S4. He didn't know where it was at, but he did see stuff that was on loading docks and whatever. Since he was in all the buildings, but that's within the confines of Area 51.
Okay.
Papoose Lake and S4. Pardon?
Oh, I was just going to ask Michael, has he seen anything with all of the documents that you've looked at? Have you seen anything that mentions S4 or Area 51 in that capacity?
I have not seen anything that specifically mentions S4. No, I have not.
Interesting.
I have not.
It is interesting. It's intriguing.
It's a big place out there, for sure. It's a big place.
I keep staring at this poor alien hanging on the fence.
Yeah. So should we continue with our cases here? All right. Let's see here. Let's see.
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's the 141 Starlifter that flew the body back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And then next one. Now, I'm going out on a limb on this one, but I'm going to include it anyway because it's in the book. It's in the book. So this is the Air Force Museum. Now, this picture wasn't taken in 1965. It looked a lot different then, but this event took place at the Air Force Museum, Dayton, Ohio, 1965. Page 153 is the reference for this. Now, this has to do with a couple that visited the Air Museum. And so they're going through all the displays, and they get to the V2 rocket display. And the wife is still looking at the V2 rocket. The husband takes off. He goes down like this hallway, and he's kind of wandering through the back hallways and rooms of the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. He goes through this double door entry that kind of says off limits. He goes through there, and what does he see? You can't believe this, but I'm moving forward anyway. He ends up seeing a 3.5 to 4 foot tall alien being dressed in a Mercury spacesuit, had a bubble transparency helmet on top with a clear transparent front. His wife is still looking at the V2 rocket display. This being points both of his index fingers toward this man who goes through these double doors that said off limits. Within 10 seconds of encountering this being, all these buzzers and red lights and alarms go off in the museum, and then these MPs usher all of the public out the doors of the museum. And it's just incredible. But this gentleman claims that whatever this thing was, it was probably perhaps an alien that escaped through his containment facility and was wandering through the back corridors of the Air Force Museum. Because if these underground tunnels are true at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, then this may have been connected via tunnel to the Air Force Museum. It's a long shot, but it's part of the story within the Stringfield cases. So that's why I've included it here. So if this is true, then again, they've got the evidence, they've got the bodies, they've got the debris, and they've got the craft. It's just another case within the Stringfield collection. Now, this one came from the Clifford Stone collection. I don't have very little information. I don't have a location. I don't have a date. But this is from a 5-minute black and white film that was shown to this Air Force pilot. I've got his 5-page report that describes this whole thing. He said that he saw this film, which depicted about a 50-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. Off to the right, there were 3 bodies that had little clothes over them, kind of like a cover concealing their bodies. On the right-hand upper side of the dome, there was a breach in the dome with conduit pipes coming out. There was some type of breach in the hull of the craft. Now, he also said, parked next to the craft itself was a troop transport with whatever this propulsion system was sitting on the flatbed truck. So this thing must have come to an abrupt halt, or there was an explosion inside, and this propulsion system ripped out of the outer part of the dome itself, and they retrieved it. And so this is an alien engine on the flatbed tractor trailer here. Now, he also said that they showed the interior display panels of the craft itself, and there was this alien iconology on the inside wall of the craft with these buttons and switches. It's like the 5th time we've heard this. So now, not only do we have the debris, we've got the craft, we've got the bodies, we've got the propulsion system that was removed from the craft. We've got everything in one shot. And he saw the black and white 5-minute motion picture film reel of this. I don't know the location. It could have been Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but this is from the retired Air Force pilot, and it's part of the Clifford Stone collection. And we can move on to this next one. Now, this is also from Leonard Stringfield. This is July, August 1947, and this is a carrot patch in Salinas, California. This thing came down, and we have a good description of what it looked like. This is the original sketch from the Leonard Stringfield collection. It was about 9 feet in diameter, 4 feet tall. Around the outer circumference of the craft, it had these indented windows that were embedded into the craft itself, and you could see the port detail here. So I went ahead and did a full color illustration, and then this is the drawing that Rudy came up with that shows you what this craft looked like. Now, when the military got there, they were tracking this thing. There were MPs with rifles. They ordered the 2 witnesses away from the scene, but they didn't get too far away because they saw the entire retrieval operation. Military personnel lifted this craft onto the trailer, and then it was moved from the location. This is 1947. So again, by this time, we've already got 3, perhaps 4, or even 5 retrievals, even before Roswell even happened. So they've got the debris, they've got the evidence. This is the location of where this craft came down here in Gonzales, California. This is south of Salinas. All right, next one. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This woman was recently hired to work at the base, and she went to a dinner party where her boss coincidentally saw her there, and they started talking about UFOs. That the topic came up for some reason, and he asked her, "Do you want to see the proof And she said, sure, yeah. And then he came back and said, tonight. And she said, tonight? Really? Tonight? He said, yes, tonight. So he brought her to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He had a plastic key card. He inserted that into a door. The doorway opened up. There was another plastic key entry that he had to get through. That opened up. And then they go into this medium-sized morgue where he opens up a drawer and she sees this body. She describes this. It's a 3-page report within the Springfield collection where she's seeing this body. It was zippered up in a plastic container up to its just lower than its upper neck area. But she saw it again, about 4 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth area. The same thing that we've seen in these other cases. Now, we can do one more case. This is August 25th, 1974. And this is very interesting. There was a mid-air collision with a 25-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that came down south of the Texas border in Cuyame, Mexico. August 25th, 1974. Mid-air collision with a 172. And the Mexican Army started the retrieval operation. It's interesting, though, that elements of the United States intelligence, probably the CIA and the NSA, they were monitoring the frequencies of the Mexican military. They knew all this was going on. They were tracking this thing. So they had one of our reconnaissance aircraft fly over the scene. And when they got there, you want to take a guess what they found? They found the entire convoy dead, standing still. There were dead bodies. Like the passenger side of the Jeeps, they were laying dead right next to the Jeep. The driver of the Jeep in the foreground was slumped over on the steering wheel. He was dead. The driver on the 18-wheeler tractor trailer, he was dead. And the passenger, he came out the door, he was dead. And then the troop transport, he was laying on the dead. They were all dead. So the military flew 3 UH-1 Huey helicopters to the scene, and they brought in a U.S. Navy Sea Stallion. They connected the craft to 2 hoist cables, and then they flew this to a CDC location north of Texas. Essentially, that's what this was. And so this is the deepest black of the black, is when the United States government came in and snatched this right below the nose of the Mexican military. Again, this is August 25th, 1974. So again, they have got the evidence. If this case is true, they've got the evidence, they've got the debris, they've got the proof that all of us within this field and around the world are looking for. They've got it.
Wow, that's incredible. So not only have they got it, but they've taken it from other people.
They've taken it from other people. They knew about the chemical, biological effects. Something was going on with this craft that caused all the Mexican Army personnel to die. Some type of chemical, biological effects. So when they got there, they were all wearing hazard suits when they got there. And they just hoisted this thing and took it out of there. So they will stop at nothing to retrieve these craft.
And clearly they had the foreknowledge of knowing what was going to be going on and how to handle it.
Yes, they had the foreknowledge. Definitely.
Interesting. Wow.
Yep. So that's where we're at currently in the investigation. We're continuing to do more cases on a weekly basis. And I just think it's important that we maintain an important part of our national history by making these cases come alive. And that's what we're doing.
I love it. And I've said before, and I will say it again, because I think it's amazing. I love the illustrations. I think they help bring it to life. You know, we've heard, some of these stories before. Some of them are new to us, at least new to me. But when we see the illustrations, that really kind of brings it to life. Oh, hold on, let me take that down. It really brings it to life and helps us see the story as it happened. And I think
that's what we want to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Somebody had a question earlier. Oh, look, here, I think Jim's trying to come back in. They had asked, all of these UFOs have windows. Why do they have windows?
Good question. I don't know. And that kind of brings up the question, could they be ours if they have windows? But that's the other thing. It's kind of a catch-22. If they're ours, why are they trying to drill into it? And why are they unsuccessful if they're ours? So what it looks like is they retrieve these things in the very early 1940s. Cape Girardeau, Battle of Los Angeles, 1941, 1942. by 47, they already had 4 or 5 of these things. They kind of had a front loaded the technology.
I mean, we're having a hell of a time with being on, being live. I mean, Michael's dropped off. I just dropped off for a minute or two. You were frozen. It's a conspiracy.
It's the CIA. They're getting you back, Jim, for all that time. All those times you've given them hell.
So perhaps they reverse engineered the technology and made their own versions of something retrieved prior to. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I have a question, though, too, Michael. You were talking before about one of the UFOs. You said it had a blue coronal discharge and that we'd heard that before.
Right.
I didn't get but 2 words out of that whole statement. And the rest was garbled.
Poor Jim. Poor Jim. Aw. We can hear you just fine and see each other, so I don't know if it's something on your end, but hopefully you'll be able to catch up. I think I can see you moving now, so hopefully it'll catch up. Or not.
Or not.
Spoke too soon. So what do you think that is? Now, is it when they're moving or is it also when they're just standing still?
I think it directly is involved with high electrical voltage charges. They're charging these craft to very high voltages, and there's this discharge that forms around these craft. There's no sharp edges. There's no sharp edges. It's all smooth, and that helps to dissipate the charge when you have these very smooth edges.
Interesting. Now, do we know anything if they have some sort of intense electromagnetic field around these? I'm assuming they must.
Well, when these craft fly overhead, they definitely cause static on radios, and they can shut down car engines. So it's a CE1 and it's a CE2 case whenever these things happen.
Interesting. Interesting. Oh, my goodness. David Martin says, how about the one 1939 in Germany? I haven't heard
I've heard about things going on in Germany, but I don't have any specific details.
Yeah. Well, also I don't know, some people don't like talking about it, but I find it fascinating with the Nazis and their interest in, or potential interest and involvement with UFOs. Do we have any people who have talked about that we have knowledge of it, whether or not that actually happened?
It's always been part of the legend that there's a German contingent to this, and looking at it, I think there is. I think there's a German contingent to this. I do.
Yeah. Well, we've got Die Glocke, and nobody really knows exactly what the Nazi bell was for it, and it is just fun to say. But it's really, really fascinating. I agree. I think that there is some sort of Nazi contingent to all of this. But
when World War II ended in 1945, in 1946, literally a year later, there were tremendous amount of UFO sightings coming out of South America, and we know where all the Nazis went. So it looks like they set up shop there, were experimenting, and they had success.
Interesting. And a lot of these stories that you were just telling about, or these sightings that you were telling us about, took place in the 40s, right around World War II. And it is interesting how it seems like after World War II and Operation Paperclip, where all the Nazi scientists came over here, and yes, like you were saying, we know that a lot of the Nazis were down in Argentina as well. That the sightings in the U.S., at least the reported sightings, really seem to ramp up after the Nazi scientists came over here.
Yeah, the flap of 47. By that time, they had 2 years to perfect the technology. So it looks like they got hardware.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I know... speaking of cosmic neighbors, I know he's done a lot of research on this and has a lot of information on it. Please ask Michael, what's next for me after the Roswell project? Oh, and he wanted me to thank you, I think for some update you did on something for him. He put it in there earlier and I told him I would tell you. And
sure, no problem. There's 2 cases that we can drill down on. We can do the Kingman crash retrieval. We can do the 1948 Aztec crash retrieval. So those are 2 that we can continue to do.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Let's see. Crowley says, but the German stories from the World War II ice base was proposed, but it's logistically impossible for the time. Well, impossible for the time as far as what the public is aware that they were capable of doing would always be my answer.
Yeah, looking at this, it just looks like they did do something. They were way ahead of us. The best we had was a P-51. They came in with the ME-262, which was 100 knots faster. So that's definitely, they had the technology.
Absolutely. I mean, and we were using Werner von Braun's rocket technology up until the 80s, I think, if I remember correctly. Incredible. Said some great minds over there. I don't know if we've lost poor Jim. Hopefully he'll be able to come back, but let me just double check, because there were a couple of questions that were really, really good ones that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
But I didn't want to interrupt too. So
okay.
Now the one, he's still stuck in my head, this poor alien that's climbing over the fence that got shot.
Yeah, I know.
So I was looking at some of the questions. Was he trying to escape when they shot him? Is that what happened?
I'm not quite sure. George Filer he was there the morning this happened. So it's really, a lot of it hinges on him. And we only have one witness to this who actually wrote in, he did a sketch. So the whole thing hinges on this one primary eyewitness, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
And so, I really don't put a whole lot into this. Other people who were there at the time were interviewed and they said, no, this didn't happen. But George Filer claims he was there that morning and they heard about these sightings of the craft just that night prior to. So there, at least we've got something to base it on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's interesting. Stuart, they said run, and it did. And it is interesting too how, here we go. Yay, Jim. I think Jim might be back. Are you back, Jim? Or is he frozen?
Fine.
No. Oh, we see movement.
Yeah. It's real sketchy here. I have almost no bars on my in my indicator there up in the corner. So I've been trying for the last minute or so to try to get on, and nothing's happening. So, did I miss anything important? Did the world come to an end while I was gone? Oh, okay.
I mean, we solved, world hunger and the economic issues that are at hand. But other than that, no, we're great. Nothing much. I still don't know if you can hear me.
Well, I don't, and I don't know what the hell's wrong with our internet everywhere. I mean, Michael's been garbled. You've been garbled. I know I've been garbled. Where I'm getting about every fifth word or part of a word. So it could be solar activity that's causing us problems.
Yeah, very possible.
Other than that, I know Michael's. You indicated you were going to run after this. The last item that you were discussing. Are you going to hang around a little bit longer, or you got to run?
We can hang out a little bit longer, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you were at Dr. Greer's. What is the most significant thing that you dug up when you were at Roswell?
Okay, at Roswell.
What one item?
It's hard to pin it down to one item, but when you go there, of course, they have the museum, then they have the library, which is probably 4,000 books, 4,000 UFO books, precisely organized. And then about 10 feet from the library, through kind of a wooden doorway, there's the research center. And they have about 200 bank boxes of material. So that you have to go through. And then near where the beginning entryway into the archives are, there's two, you could call them displays, carousel displays with another 200 3-ring binders. So all in all, there's a tremendous amount of material that would take a week to go through all of it. And it took me 2 trips to go through and scan all of it. So to answer your question, Jim, I don't know if I could nail it down to one thing. I could say one thing. There was a document there, 600 pages, and I don't know who did this, but it was a massive undertaking. Someone went back to all the newspaper clippings from 1840s, 1870s, 1890s, and got all of the mystery airship newspaper clipping reports. Not only did they read them, but they retyped them into a 600-page article document. That's got to be a highlight. I don't know who did this. That's a major undertaking, but someone actually read all these newspaper clippings and typed them onto 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. And it turns out it's 600 pages. There is so much evidence within that document. There is no doubt that the 1897 mystery airship is true. I'm not saying it's alien, but it is true. That was a highlight.
Wow, that's incredible.
But we didn't have a. We didn't have any aviation technology back in the 1800s. I mean, the Skunk Works was still 50 years away from being created. The Wright brothers. So the aeronautical part of the world wasn't even an afterthought. I mean, there was actually nothing going on. So to have a craft, like the pirate ship or whatever this, the one illustration, one of the illustrations you have in your book,
right?
That's an interesting looking machine. I mean, it's something out of a, it was oh my God,
out of a Jules Verne comic.
Does that? But Jules Verne and the guys from England. Oh, come on, my mind. I know exactly who I'm trying to talk about. Monty Python Flying Circus, and those.
Sure.
The crazy Brits and some of their character flying machines that they had.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just we didn't have there was hot air balloons at the time, but there weren't any. We didn't have what we called airships back then. Yet this ship that's been, that I've seen the illustrations on, it was a huge wooden ship with a huge bag above it, causing, allowing it, to fly from one place to the other. And it's just, I mean, it's pretty outrageous for the time frame that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Plus,
I mean, the automobile hadn't really, morphed into anything yet. Mm-hmm. So that to have a something as big as a ship flying through the air, and it looked like an 1800s vintage sailing ship.
Yep.
Illustration. Yep. So
these pilots that were flying these in 1897, they were wearing a 3-piece black suit. They had a black top hat on, and they had black dogs on the deck of their ships, and they were wearing smoke-colored glasses. This is from the eyewitnesses that saw these things when they actually landed. I mean, these guys were actually wearing top hats, so it is screaming a man-made technology.
Wow, that's incredible.
Too bad we can't go back in time with a high resolution camera and take some pictures of some of this stuff.
Of course.
That'd be amazing. That would be amazing. So we can pose this question to either you, Michael, or Jim, or both if you want to. Crowley wanted to know, do you feel the Messerschmitt was a tech changer? I'd love to talk about this further.
I feel it was a tech changer, because we were still flying Rolls-Royce Merlin V12 engines when this ME-262 came ripping by 100 miles an hour faster than the P-51. So, yes, I believe it was a tech changer. Jim, if you want to comment on that.
Well, I mean, Yeah, it would have been a major changer for the war if Hitler hadn't micromanaged the program.
Mhm.
If it had been used for what it was intended, a high-speed interceptor or even a high-speed bomber, it would have been a lot more successful, and it may have caused the war to go on longer, or even for the Europeans to lose. I mean, it was a game changer. It's like going into a gunfight and you just have a six-shooter revolver, and the other guy has an M61 Vulcan cannon, attached to the top of his Humvee. I mean, he's gonna paint you with 6,000 rounds of ammunition before you can fire all six rounds of your gun. So that's the technology back then was unbelievable compared to what the current state of the art was back in 1897. I mean, very few. Most of the country didn't even have indoor plumbing in 1897. Yet they're having this craft that's flying over major cities, and I mean, can you imagine how much it would scare the hell out of you if something like that flew over? I mean, and you have to go back to the mindset where there was no such thing as airplanes, there were no such thing as cars, there was no such thing as rockets or blimps or whatever. To have this thing flying over that you recognize it is a man of war ship. Mm-hmm. Why is it in the sky? It's supposed to be in the ocean, and that could have had a real adverse effect on the local population if that had been. In fact, if you and I had been there, I think it had been interesting to see what the overall response was from the population, because I think they would have to be scared.
They were. I mean, they were terrified.
I mean, if you look up and you see something up in the air that you can't explain, but it has components on it that look familiar, your first question you're going to ask, one, how in the hell is it staying up there? Mm-hmm. Because the laws of aviation laws hadn't really been investigated very far back then. I mean, there were attempts at flight, but they were all Johnny-come-latelys. I mean, they weren't there yet. And it wasn't until 1903 that the Wright brothers finally were able to take to the air in what we call an airplane. But what is this ship? What is this dreadnought that's flying through the sky? And it's huge, and it's got to be terrifying. I mean, just psychologically, it's got to scare the hell out of anybody who sees it.
Right. Well, that's
can you imagine if you were out in the backyard working in your yard and you saw the USS Nimitz fly over your house? Yeah, right. That's probably the equivalent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely.
How in the hell did you get something that big, that huge, in the sky? And is it going to fall out of the sky? What's it doing up there? Is it there to command us to do whatever they want us to do? Because of we're dealing with this incredible machine. Is it going to take over the world? I'm sure people who saw that was a thought that went through their head. How in the hell? How is our government allowing this to happen? How are we allowing to have this craft, this war machine, threaten us just by being there? We have no means to protect ourselves. That's got to be a scary situation back in the day.
But that's one of the things I find so interesting about the Aurora, Texas incident, is that not only did they not seem scared, but according to reports, and Michael, I don't know if you have looked into this one more, I'm sure more than I have, though it is one of my favorite ones, they supposedly buried the occupant or occupants.
Yeah, I've heard about that case as well. And one thing I wanted to point out, though, is that when these things hovered over Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento, thousands of eyewitnesses saw powerful beaming spotlights that were shining down. So somehow they developed electrical power sources that were light enough for them to fly over and shine these spotlights down. We're talking huge searchlights were shining down on the cities, massive power drain. So they figured out a way to put that thing mobile onto their craft, fly it over, and then shine down on the cities.
More things that we have to find out about, huh, Michael?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, fantastic. Well, I don't know if I don't want to keep you too long, Michael. I know you're incredibly busy, but thank you so much for coming and sharing your stories with us and the illustrations. They're incredible. I can't wait to see the next book.
Yep, we're continuing on. So thank you very much, Lynn and Jim. We'll speak to you soon.
Have you done any more of your Blue Room media?
I have more I can do. There's more cases that I've done that I haven't put up there yet. So yeah, there's a lot more material. Plus everything from Roswell that can go up too. So yep, it's an endless amount of cases.
Can hardly wait.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Michael, I thank you for your time. I thank you for coming back. I mean, last time you were on was short-lived. But it's always a pleasure. It's always an honor. And
really,
I thank you for your friendship.
You too, Jim.
And and to the world who's out there listening, no one does it better than Michael. Nobody.
You're too nice, Jim. You're too nice.
No, it's well deserved. It's well deserved.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I'm not, anytime I mention your name, everybody goes, oh, Michael Schratt. I mean, he's going to be on your program, or, oh, I can't wait to, hear what Michael has to say. So a lot of people are very interested in what Michael Schratt has to say and what your evil mind is up to in today's world.
Yeah.
So,
the Schrattosphere. Now we have a term.
Right.
That's
right. Right. So again, I thank you for your time. It was a quick hour and 43 minutes, and it's always fun. And here's that pain in the ass in that Dave Hurley. Oh, that was that's your guy.
Oh, mine, yeah, that's it.
Oh, there he is again. Oh,
there he is.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person one of these days. So.
Absolutely. He's looking forward to meeting you too.
and I'm meeting with Jared Murphy
nice.
in about a week and a half.
Oh, you'll have a great time with Jared.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that he lives in Minneapolis, and I was in there when he was there, and he's going to be there when I get there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be interesting to see what he has planned for Peru.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot.
Because I mentioned that to the boss, and said, "Are you going?" I said, "I'll know more when I get back from Minneapolis." But the answer to your question, yeah, if I can, I'm going to go. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks,
Michael. You have a good one, and
okay.
I'll be talking to you later, and stay out of trouble.
Yep.
Yeah, keep smiling at all those Lockheed guys when you go to work tomorrow. And, yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right. Adios.
Bye, Michael. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Lynn, it's always a pleasure. I have company right now. I have.
Yes, I won't keep you. I know you've got the Cousins brothers there, so tell them we all said hi.
And I always kill a lot of brain cells when they're here. So it's just a lot of fun. And
that's good.
And I look, and a lot of people don't look forward to Mondays. I look forward to every Monday because that's when I get a chance to be on the program with the lovely Lynn.
Oh, thank you. So, well, I enjoy it, and I look forward to it as well.
Yeah,
and we get to talk to some amazing people. And Michael is one of my favorites.
Yes, one of my favorites too. So, all righty, dear. You have a wonderful day, evening, and tell that guy you're married to, I'm looking forward to meeting him one of these days. And
he can't wait to meet you too.
We'll just take it from there.
Sounds good. Well, have a great night.
So to everybody who's listening in, I hope you enjoyed the evening. It's always a pleasure when I get to share what little bit I have to share, and I just and when we have people like Michael on the program, and people like Jared was on the program, and we have some wonderful people, interesting people, and we're here to expand your knowledge base. And any way that you can help expand ours, we look forward to it. So again, I thank all of you, especially Lynn. I want to thank Michael. And I have to go spend some time with the cousin brothers. So you all take care, and I will talk to you later in the week, and I will talk to you for sure next Monday.
Sounds good. All right.
All right, dear. You take care.
All right, you too.
Adios. Bye-bye.